Welcome to Clubhouse for the review of the Bandai high-grade non-scale Alteisen from the Super Robot Wars series. Despite the box claiming this belonged to Super Robot Wars OG, and it's true that this is an original design to the series, the Alteisen first saw action in Super Robot Wars Comeback 2 for the WonderSwan, and of course it reappeared in later games after that. This kit follows the Cybaster, which that and this kit are both kits that Super Robot Wars fans have been really excited to have, and as of this video, Bandai has announced that the guest pens will be the next release, so Bandai seems quite committed to making SRW original designs into model kits. Getting right down to business, the Alteisen was released on December 11th, 2021 and is sold for a price of 4,400 yen. The box art is once again drawn by Masami Obari, just like the Cybaster before it, and he's really not a common name we see on Bandai's boxes, and it's quite a treat. The box measures 31 by 20 by 12 centimeters, which is very similar to the Cybaster. The short side of the box repeats all its information from the front of the box, and the other side is exactly the same. The long side is surprisingly sparse with photos and text. And the other side has the front and back of the Alteisen and a bit on Kyosuke Nanbu who pilots it, and then it's all legal text. Inside the box, we get the Alteisen spread across 10 runners with no polycaps once again. We get this joint runner once again, which was also used for the Cybaster, and it's labeled Super Robot, so maybe Bandai expects to use these across all the SRW kits that they want to make. Then we get an action base 4 with all the arm parts here in clear plastic, but we only get one base plate here in black. We get a sheet of foil stickers with one here for the eyes. Then these green ones here are for the sensors on the top of the torso. This yellow one goes on the vent on the front here. The yellow triangles are for the shoulders. The white lines here also go onto the shoulders on the back panel here. The red ones here are for the top of the front skirt. These yellow ones are for the details on the legs. The red lines here each go onto the front of the gun barrels on the left arm. For the instructions, we get a lot more writing on the Alteisen and its different parts, along with the color guide at the very bottom. Then there are 3 more color pages that are all used for assembly instructions. And the black and white side is all used for assembly instructions, as you'd expect. A bit over 2 hours later, we have the completed Alteisen looking very blocky and very heroic. Your eyes are probably racing to take in all the crazy details all around the body that's really screaming for your attention all at the same time. Super Robot Wars original designs don't do things subtle. And we really have to talk about the ridiculous proportions first, with those gigantic shoulders towering way past the head. These are really large even for the already really large body, and the entire shape here really looks muscular and powerful. To make the head seem even smaller, the horn at the front, which can be used for a melee weapon, and the antennas at the back reach out in both directions and dwarf that head itself. This is aggressive and it's flamboyant, and it's very clear that you're not supposed to ask too many questions about practicality of design and just enjoy where it takes you. The asymmetric lower arms break up all that repetition, and it stands out from the rest of the suit, making you wonder exactly what they do and why they're built like this. The iconic design has round elements like the head, and square elements like the shoulders, triangular elements as we move downwards, so that the Alteisen is partitioned into clear sections for the eyes, and it's just really good. It's classic Japanese animation robot design with a strong kick. The head got a lot of love from the designers, with the white of the face complemented by the gray that all sit on top of the main red coloring. The eyes are actually clear green underneath, which you can really see only if you remove that long aggressive brow line on top of it. The vents on the chest here are not only yellow at the very bottom, but are yellow on the walls around it, which is really rare on HG kits. The same goes on these vents on the legs here, all lined with yellow. And the best of them are these parts in the front here that sits flush with the black armor all around it, and that transition is just flawless. You probably guessed from the stickers earlier that colors really aren't a problem on this kit, and look at this. This is not an easy thing to color in plastic, with all the small jumps back and forth in colors. The Alteisen looks as great as you know it in your memory, and I think most people will be getting this kit exactly because they are longtime fans of that particular look. So the good news is, it is rendered really nicely here on this kit, and it's really hard to nitpick how it looks. Now, colors aside, we do have a small problem here with the horn, where the front section routinely comes off when you try to position the head. The neck joint is very stiff, so the force you need to move the head will often rip the forehead right off, or at least unseat it a good bit. It's quite annoying when you have to pose the kit. The other major complaint are these hoods on the back, which from the top and the sides they look really good, but from the bottom they're just way out of place with how ugly and hollow they are. Maybe the kit ran out of runner space for black parts, but these hood parts are really screaming to be covered up with panels on the inner side here, and you don't get sloppy parts like this anywhere else on the kit. Well, no, there's this other part here on the heel also that has absolutely no friction and it's gonna fall off freely. It might just be my particular kit, but if you have it too, make sure to glue this part down before you lose it. But otherwise, the designers are meticulous in tuning every small detail, like the back skirt here that's really large and blocky, and I bet you want to feel this big blocky thing in your hands right now, don't you? Because of this new and more pronounced shape, it visually pairs really nicely with the hoods on the shoulders up top. If we look at the older Kotobukiya kits, they're really no slouch and they look great, but that back skirt there just can't compare to that new one that embraces the crazy SRW style with confidence. We get all the thrusters here on the back to push the heavy and unwieldy Alteisen forward. Another certain YouTuber mentions that he thought these would be yellow on the inside, but that's asking a bit much for an HG kit, and I'm not sure if that's really the most important takeaway for this part, because the density of the details here and the information you get from all of this is just more than enough, and I think most fans will be very happy with how this part looks here. And while we're talking about details, there are holes here on the side skirt which this kit doesn't actually have any use for, unless Bandai is going to do the most obvious thing in the world and release the Alteisen Nacht, which you know they will, and you know it's going to be a Bandai thing, so I guess we can look forward to that. Okay, on to the main course. Let's look at the shoulders here. The top door at the front here slides down with quite a bit of friction. That gives it enough clearance it needs to open up like this. Then the bottom door swings open as is. The doors have molded details lining the inner sides both for the top and the bottom doors. The exposed parts on the inside are all colored black, and even the inside walls are colored black. And we get these things here that look like doors that open, but they're actually the square claymore weapons that shoot out, and those things then launch ball bearings at the enemy like a real claymore mine. These are big and they're cool enough that you're gonna want to display the kit with them ready to fire like this, and these shoulders are here to tell you that they aren't just big just for looks. Those hoods on the back that we saw earlier do look good, as we've already said, and they can swing upwards like this, and the white one can follow. You're free to adjust them in any position in between, and they're really helpful when posing to change the shape of the Alteisen to communicate motion. The left arm here has a triple barrel machine gun, which it gets from the guest pens, which it's supposedly based on, though to be honest I don't really see the resemblance that much. This is an entirely static part and nothing here moves, and not that anything here is supposed to move. The barrels can get knocked off center a little bit from time to time, so if you don't want to adjust this all the time, it's best to glue them and lock them in place. The handle on top makes this hand look kinda like one of those handheld searchlights though, but otherwise this is a really cool weapon on an otherwise static arm. Now the right arm has far more going on, and you can see this is clearly meant to look like a revolver. The pike at the front is very nicely done in grey, and this is actually the only part that's especially done in grey, which is nice. Of course, we want to see the cylinder of the revolver arm, and it can swing out like this, with the explosive rounds inside there molded really sharply with that trench around it, really drawing out their shape. The backside here is really nicely detailed too, which you can't see when this is all closed up. The entire cylinder can rotate freely, of course, and you know this is the first thing you're going to want to play with if you pick this kit up off a shelf. The function here is simple on the surface, but all the overlapping parts and the combining shape is fun to see and study. The outrageous design really draws a lot of attention, so it's good that this really isn't afraid to show itself off. One small annoyance with the shoulder at the top here is when you turn the arms along this joint, it does get wedged out of place like this and you do have to clamp it back together. It's never going to fall off or anything, but you do have to put it back in place from time to time. But that is a good chance to talk about all these leftover joints on the runner. The Cybaster makes extensive use of these parts and it kinda suffered for it, so it seems like Bandai thinks so too, judging by how little of this that they actually use. It kinda defeats the purpose of these common joints when even Bandai themselves starts avoiding most of it by the second kit in the series, but actually this is a good thing. The Cybaster's joints were stubborn and it's bizarre, like the elbow here that can swing sideways like this, and the Alteisen has none of that strangeness. And of course there are other problems like the very strange construction, like the horn on the back right here where the two halves are completely unlinked and they stand free of each other, or this terrible peg on the chest which is only attached on this end, so everything else hangs precariously out from it, just waiting to be snapped off. There's a lot of weird stuff like that, and I'm surprised that the Alteisen is nothing as esoteric as that, and what you get here is really solid and really robust, and it seems like the designers really learned their lesson from the Cybaster. For the hands, it's really quite simple. We get the holding hands that we've been looking at so far, and then we have the open palms, which are always nice to have. The holding hands don't actually have anything to hold on this kit, but again, if they're gonna make the Alteisen Nacht, these will probably be for the sword. They look okay, it's a tad on the blocky side, and at their size you will notice that hole down the middle from time to time. The open palms are detailed, no nonsense, and they match the blocky Alteisen. We need open palms for a heroic robot like this, and they're really great to have, because it's kinda hard to find aftermarket ones that match this slightly large size. For the articulation, the head goes up a little bit, and it doesn't go down at all. It can turn a little bit, but the collar blocks the back of the head. The gigantic shoulder can swing forward this much somehow, which is insane. The arms don't swing outwards much, unfortunately. They do swing around a full circle with nothing blocking them. The biceps allow a full rotation of the arms. The elbow manages exactly 90 degrees. The hands can be adjusted on their ball joints, and they can rotate around a full circle. The waist tips forward a little bit, and it doesn't go backwards at all. It can turn side to side, but is limited by that black part at the front. The front skirt swings up without anything getting in the way. The side skirts sit on a ball joint, and they can swing up all the way like this. And the joint itself can swing along a peg as well, which is amazing. That chunky back skirt doesn't move at all. The bulky legs can swing outwards almost 90 degrees. They can rotate along the thigh like this. If you move the knee armor out of the way a little bit, the kick can go nearly 90 degrees forward. They kick backwards barely at all. They bend well over 90 degrees even at their size. And the black part here at the front can swing upward to give the feet more clearance. The ankle joint can swing forward like this, though there's no room to go back at all. The foot is on a ball joint. You wouldn't think the Alteisen would move as well as it does given how it looks, but the joints here really have all the range you need to do all the poses you demand of it. Unlike conservative real robots, these more wild and unhinged real robots need to do outrageous poses that match their outrageous design, and somehow the Alteisen can pull it all off without some convoluted engineering and complex joint. You get all this great mobility on a kit that doesn't fall apart or fight you too much when you move it around, so this is all great stuff. Here it is next to the Cybaster once again. Now the Alteisen is not a small kit, but the Cybaster is way taller still. People really were shocked by how gigantic the Cybaster was, and the Alteisen brings things back down to earth a little bit, but they don't look so far apart that they won't fit next to each other on your shelf. And here's the lower end benchmark, the entry grade RX-78. And here's the upper end benchmark, the high grade New Gundam. The box doesn't give this a scale, but it does tell us that this is supposed to be 22 meters tall, so next to the 18 meter RX-78, we can say this is pretty close in the ballpark of a 1144 kit, certainly close enough for us to call it that. By head height, it sits in between the RX-78 and the New Gundam, if it's just the head that we're talking about, so it's really not that tall, but with the shoulders and that horn, it goes way past the New Gundam. The Alteisen may be a real robot, but it's a really crazy, really aggressive real robot. With all that said, here's a Hobby Clubhouse 3-point verdict on the Bandai high-grade non-scale Alteisen. Number 1, it looks as good as fans would hope. I said it earlier, but almost everyone who's gonna buy this kit will be buying it because of the design. So it's great news that this kit is a wonderful rendition of that crazy design. And that's really not an easy thing, because this is by far not the only Alteisen kit ever made. Kotobukiya made 2 of these in 1144, and those are all well loved by their fans. This kit looks just as great as those classic ones, and it comes with the Bandai signature friendliness in its construction that makes all that color and all that detail feel effortless to you. So the simple word is, if you love the Alteisen, this kit deserves a spot in your collection. And number 2, it's expensive, but it's not overpriced. Now 4,400 yen is well above most HG kits that we normally buy, but this kit really puts your money to work. Most of it comes in the form of the colors all over this crazy thing and the sheer volume of plastic that gives you all that crazy bulk. In other words, they spend all that money on stuff you're gonna enjoy. And while there isn't a big arsenal and a ton of accessories, basically what you see is what you get. But everything is built in and functional, like the crazy shoulders that open up and that revolver arm. If everything was like the static gun arm, then yeah, maybe we can call this kit a little lame, but it's clear that the designers didn't cut too many corners because they know if you're gonna buy the Alteisen, 4,400 yen won't even make you flinch if it means this kit can look nicer. And number 3, it makes the future bright. Let's face it, we all love the Cybaster like crazy, but that kit was esoteric as hell. It was put together strangely and it doesn't like being posed and it just fights you like crazy. That stupid cybird head gets in the way when it's pointed back, and when it's pointed forward it looks like a giant cock. And as super fans, we like it because it's better than nothing, but it really didn't have to be so darn strange. And so many fans expected the Alteisen to be that same way, to be really strange, but it really isn't. It just doesn't need you to put up with too much. It's straightforward, it's well built, and it mostly stays in one piece. So you're free to really enjoy it, and that's great news because now we can look forward to the guest bench and whatever lies beyond. So that's a review of the HG Alteisen. There are no casual SRW fans out there, and they're all incredibly demanding, but I think fans will be happy with this kit. Or not, come tell me down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Come look us up on social media with updates on upcoming videos and sneak peeks at future projects, links are in the description below. Or hang out here some more with one of these other videos. But before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to be notified of new videos from Hobby Clubhouse, and I'll see you next time.